There's a whole new market for lightweight drones, including the new Dji Mini 2, and a lot of conflicting information about the laws that apply to these drones. It's time we take a look. Hello and welcome to LegalDrone, where we talk about drones and other tech stuff. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Before we begin, I just want to say that this video is for educational purposes only, and it should not be considered in any way as legal advice. The new Dji Mini 2 have been released, and you might have seen videos in YouTube reviewing this drone. And this drone is a very powerful drone in a small size. And a lot of conflicting information is out there about the laws that apply. A lot of people say that these drones are toys. And is that true? And as everything in this life, we need to see what the law says. So let's start with the definition of a small unmanned aircraft. And this law is codified under Title 49 of the United States Code. When it comes to drones, there's a whole subtitle that is dedicated to small unmanned aircraft. So to find our answer of what is a drone, we need to look at the definitions in this law. So Title 49 of the United States Code, Section 44801 says, the term small unmanned aircraft means an unmanned aircraft weighing less than 55 pounds, including the weight of anything attached to or carried by the aircraft. Now, the FAA is a federal agency, and its regulations are published in the Code of Federal Regulations, and the FAA regulations under the Code of Federal Regulations are under Title 14. So the FAA issued a special rule for unmanned aircraft, and that is under Section or Part 101. And this regulation, if you look at it, it says that the aircraft is limited to not more than 55 pounds unless otherwise certified through a design, construction, inspection, flight test, and operational safety program administered by a community-based organization. So the FAA issued a special rule about drones that is consistent with what the law says. So why does people say that the Mavic Mini or the Mini 2 are toys? Well, for that we need to look at 14 CFR section 48.15, where it states the requirements for registration. And if you look into that particular part of the regulation, it says that no person may operate a small unmanned aircraft that is eligible for registration under 49 USC 44101 to 44103 unless one of the following criteria has been satisfied. The owner has registered and marked the aircraft in accordance with this part. The aircraft weighs 0.55 pounds or less on takeoff, including everything that is on board or otherwise attached to the aircraft, or the aircraft is an aircraft of the Armed Forces of the United States. Now, this shouldn't be construed that it applies also for commercial purposes, but as you've seen, there you go, the registration requirement. It says that a drone that weighs less than 0.55 pounds, you don't have to register. But do you need to follow all the other guidelines and rules that are published by the FAA and under the law? Well, yes. If you're flying for recreational purposes, you might not need to register your drone if it weighs less than 0.55 pounds. In this case, the Mini 2 weighs 249 grams, and that will translate as less than 0.55 pounds. And yes, you can fly your drone without registration if you're flying for recreational purposes. But the definition of small unmanned aircraft, if you look at the law and you look at the regulations, you clearly see that the definition of a drone is a unmanned aircraft that weighs less than 55 pounds. You don't see anything else under that definition, so yes, you need to follow all the other rules. When it comes to commercial purposes, is a whole nother story. We have to go to 14 CFR Part 107, especially Part 107.13, to see if you need to register your drone or see the registration requirements for a Part 107 drone. It says that a person operating a civil small unmanned aircraft system for purposes of flight must comply with the provisions of Section 91.203A2 of this chapter. So yes, now we have to go to another part of the 14 CFR to see whether you need to register your drone. So if we go to that particular section of the regulations, we might see, and it says, no person may operate a civil aircraft unless it has within the following: an effective U.S. registration certificate issued to its owner. So as you may see, yes, you need to have a certificate issued to the owner of the aircraft, and that clearly states that you need to register your drone regardless of weight. It doesn't matter if you are flying a Mini 2, you're flying a FPV drone, or you're flying a DJI Mavic Mini, you will have to register your drone if you're using it for commercial purpose. So the thing is that under the law and under the eyes of the FAA, the Mavic Mini, the DJI Mini 2, or other drone that weighs less than 0.55 pounds, it's still considered a drone. And what does that mean? Well, that means that you need to follow all the other rules, all the other guidelines that the FAA issue for recreational pilots if you're flying for recreational purposes. Because if you're flying for commercial purposes, it doesn't matter. You still have to register your drone and fly under Part 107. Now, my problem with these drones is that, these drones are really small, and I might find it a little difficult to keep visual line of sight. Yes, you need to fly within the visual line of sight, and that is one of the first thing that you have to do when flying drones. I don't know if you follow that guideline or that particular part of the regulation or that particular part of the law. So yes, you have to fly within the visual line of sight. And I know it can be a little frustrating, but that's what the law says. Until we get remote ID, where they are trying to calm people down with remote ID by telling them, well, we might roll out flying beyond the visual line of sight, or we might roll out flying over people. Until we get to that point, right now you cannot do that, or you shouldn't be doing it. If you're doing it. The other thing is that these small drones have been designed to be safe in terms of if they fall from the sky, they shouldn't cause any serious injuries. And that is why people are trying to get the FAA to allow these drones to be able to fly over people. At this moment, you cannot fly over people with any drone unless you get a waiver under Part 107 rules, and you have to apply for a waiver through the FAA website, and not a lot of these requests have been approved by the FAA. So yes, it's problematic for people that use their drones for commercial purposes, and it turns out they cannot go to a particular event to record because the event has a lot of people and you cannot fly over people. And I know this Mini 2 drone is really powerful. It withstands a lot of wind. You have like a 10-kilometer range from the remote. So yes, it has a lot of features that other drones have that are bigger. You don't have to register it, and it will come handy when remote ID rolls out, because there are a lot of privacy issues with remote ID, and a lot of people might not want to keep on this hobby because of those particular privacy issues, and a drone like the Mini 2 or the Mavic Mini or other lightweight drone might get you off remote ID. You might be able to still use your drone in a lot of places without the need to give your information to the FAA. So finally, I want to say something about remote ID. Yes, remote ID is upon us. It will roll out probably at the end of the year or maybe at the beginning of the next year. And yes, remote ID has a lot of issues. Starting with what I said about privacy. The idea that someone can access your personal information, location of your aircraft, and your location at any time when you're flying your drone is scary. And these things are problematic for us that try always to follow the law. We fly, with safety measures. We fly to comply with the law. We take precautions. We do analysis before we go to the field to fly. And because of few people that don't follow the law, they go to fly during baseball games. So it's complicated to be on this side and not be able to do a lot about regulations because of the forces that are moving the FAA towards regulations. What we can do is, keep saying that regulations shouldn't be this restrictive, that we fly safely. I think drones are the most safe aircraft within the airspace of the United States, and we need to keep educating law enforcement people about drones and drone laws. And this is basically what I want to do, and all we want to do is to educate people on what to do when you're flying, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and fly safe. So if you like this video, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and here you will see more videos about drone laws and here some of my footage. So enjoy my channel.